Is body armor really overrated? Well, let's go ahead and discuss that. There's been plenty of times where I've heard people talk about body armor being basically useless, and depending on the context, it can be more of a burden than, a benefit, and that's what we're really going to talk about first. So, first things first is mission. Mission dictates a lot of things, and there's a lot of different variables of that. First thing to be considered is the environmental considerations and environmental factors. Is it going to be hot and humid to where you're risking dehydration, having more stuff? Because realistically, depending on the kind of body armor, you might actually become a heat casualty or something of that nature. Or maybe working in terrain where mobility is key, and taking off as much weight so you're not creating your own mudslide or whatever. Depends on the terrain, right? Also, I already covered this, mobility. Now, mobility is more in the sense of how fast you can be. So if you're going to be doing a lot of fire maneuver, maybe you're a QRF force who's just trying to get contact on the enemy to reinforce somebody, maybe you feel that it's better to be more maneuverable or whatever. That can be a factor, like if you're not just QRF, but like if you're moving to an objective, and before you actually assault the objective, you actually put on like armor or something like that because you're likely to have contact with the enemy. That would be more of a consideration. That would be in the planning process. That's where armor is not really necessary when you're en route to basically a mission, and the likelihood of being kinetic or being in contact is less likely. So the next one is, I already touched on this, the likelihood of contact. So if you're, doing a neighborhood patrol or whatever during WROL or whatever, and, there's no real reason to think that there's going to be contact around, or you're just going and, shaking babies and, kissing hands or whatever, then, and contact is not likely, then yeah, you wouldn't be wearing body armor maybe. Or maybe you're at your home post, but you're just having your stuff on to be ready. Maybe that would be when body armor isn't really necessary. And also, I already touched on this, moving to an objective or whatever, so you can be faster on your feet, and then putting on body armor with that. Or doing reconnaissance, like deep reconnaissance or something like that, where you're constantly on the move. And the likelihood is low of enemy contact, because the point is to basically stay low and observe from a distance or whatever. Maybe that would be the case, or you're going to be in the prone for a while or whatever. Then basically body armor isn't necessarily the most necessary piece of equipment to have. So the next one is, let's look at this from a variable of coverage, and this really goes into like the pros and cons of different types of body armor. So you have like this is a plate carrier. It has no other armor in it except for the plates. So this is basically minimalistic. It's basically preparing for small arms fire, so it's more of a CQB thing where you may get contact from the rear or whatever, but this doesn't absolutely protect you from things like fragmentation or whatever, but that's not what this is really preparing for. This is more preparing for direct shots from small arms fire, right? So next one is like a fragmentation vest, like the Pasget vest, the stuff that you saw people using in like Vietnam up to Desert Storm or whatever, where it was just basically a Kevlar vest, had no plates or whatever. It's just protecting from fragmentation. Maybe that's, and it would also work well with some pistol calibers or stuff like that, but not necessarily like rifles. So if you're only really expecting like pistols, or you're on reconnaissance and you want to have some form of protection, because if an enemy is engaging you at a distance, that might actually be enough to help protect you a little bit from certain rounds, like like grenade rounds or grenade launchers or something like that, if that's going to be utilized against you or whatever, just searching the wood line with grenades or whatever, that might provide some protection, but that'd be a pretty crappy situation, right? And then you got the full body armor, which is basically like what I had in the Marine Corps first, which I nicknamed the Turtle, because it had front and side sappies, but also it had almost complete coverage of your torso, and it had, Kevlar lining and stuff like that, so it would take pistol and fragmentation, and also you had your plates that would cover your vitals, and also side plates that would cover, this area, because really you don't want to be shot through and through the sides or whatever, but that's the kind of stuff that people that were in turrets would wear, because, they might not only just take a sniper shot to the torso, but they might also get fragmentation from, say, RPGs, close distance RPGs like airburst grenades, which did happen from them like firing just outside of the range of the RPGs where they would self-detonate because they remembered to pull the pin. But other things like bullets hitting the turret and fragmenting into the chest or whatever. So you have different levels of armor for the different situations that you might encounter. So that's a factor. The last thing I want to touch on is physical capability. So a lot of the people that say armor is basically useless are people that don't even want to carry or don't want to wear body armor because of the weight. And I can understand that depending on the mission, and of course, mission dictates or whatever, but the military's kind of hard on you, saying, you will wear armor all the time. Now, if you're a little more flexible and logical, you can adapt this to realistic expectations and realistic implementation of gear. So, with that said, a lot of the people that I hear that are going to make excuses probably in the comments are going to be like, well, I have a physical handicap, so it's useless for me. Then don't say it's useless overall or that it's overrated overall. That just means that you're using your physical incapability to basically justify nobody having armor. Or the next thing that I want to propose is, if you are really so physically inept or incapable of carrying, 15 pounds of armor, maybe less, maybe 10 pounds, because you can get 5-pound, level 4 plates. Maybe you're incapable of actually just carrying a combat load to begin with, and you're a tactical no-go to begin with. So you shouldn't even probably be talking at all, because your capabilities are basically next to none unless you're standing still. And then if you're standing still, probably going to have a chair, so, why not put on armor? There's not that much problems with that, right? So anyways, if you're going to get body armor, you need to train with it, right? You need to get used to the weight, just wearing it around and, bending over, doing everyday tasks and forcing it. It actually can help your body get accustomed to that added weight and stuff like that. It's very simple stuff. But we didn't really do all that in the Marine Corps, and I paid for it in country because, we didn't really have much of people basically forcing us to go on gear runs or body armor runs or, boots and use runs all that much. But when they did, definitely noticed a growth in the field. We would spend a lot of time in the field in full gear, and that did help some, but the time in between doing that, it wasn't enough to actually grow our bodies and be ready, at least for me. I wasn't really into going out on my own and doing my own physical training. I was just exhausted and I wanted to do other things. I wanted to live. But with that said, that's my perception on the whole claim that body armor is overrated. I think it does have a purpose, and you should actually get the body armor that helps you prepare for the situations that you're likely to encounter. Not what you're fantasizing about, but what you're likely to encounter. And for me, at this stage, it's basically a plate carrier. So in some cases, a basic fragmentation vest that'll protect from, pistol rounds would probably be a little better. May take the weight down. I'd probably cut the weight in half if I just had something like a Pasget vest for, situation where pistols are are more likely. And for the inner cities, you're more likely to deal with pistols, like with gangbangers and stuff like that. They tend to like those, but having something like an interceptor vest that can do both would probably be a good idea as well. But level 3 plates can be pretty lightweight. You can even get level 4 if you're worried about the old somebody having armor piercing ammunition, but level 3 generally will do good, and level 3 plus, like these ones, good enough. So anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below about body armor. Is it overrated? And if you think it is, go ahead and leave your argument. I know some people are going to be like, well, it doesn't really protect you from a diagonal shot. I've seen plenty of people actually get shot around the plate carrier, and they survived. And actually the bullets didn't exactly stay on course. The AK rounds actually did this and followed the path of least resistance, followed the muscle after hitting a rib. So, with that said, again, if you have experience in these things, you can actually make a pretty good educated decision. But some people, you're left to basically what little you have, which is basically basic research and anecdotes from weirdos like myself. So leave it in the comments below what you think either way, and you guys have a good one.